Our next interview is with Neil Middleton, frontman for rock band Royal Bliss. Neil hails from Salt Lake City, Utah, a place he still calls home. It was there that Royal Bliss started, and 20 years later, the band has reached yet another height, recently signing an international record deal with Explorer One Music. The band has a storied past, but has come back swinging every time. Their single Paranoid hit number 19 in the country. Royal Bliss has been making their mark for years with a consistent work ethic of writing, recording, touring, and performing. We are thrilled and honored to have Neil Middleton here to tell us a little bit more about his journey and his path. Thank you so much for joining us, Neil.
Sweat. It was like the combination of like the height of like, because I'm like a little bit afraid of heights, and then listening to you go through that and worrying as I don't know how to turn off my like voice doctor, is he okay, ears and heart. I mean, I guess that kind of does lead us to our first question. But what we were talking about is how difficult your style of singing really is, and that it's really, really tough on the body. It's tough on your chords. And there's no way to really do it without investing in your voice in some way, be it, vocal health, technique, and all that stuff. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done and give some advice to young singers who are just learning to explore their rock voice?
Yeah, I was really ignorant towards, really taking care of my voice. I never really took lessons growing up or anything like that. So I just kind of had it. And I found like through the years, a lot of my time, I was a rock and roll band. I drank way too much before I went on stage, drank while I was on stage. And eventually through the years, it caught up to me. I would figure out, if I got sick or if my voice would get worn out, I'd figure out different ways to sing on my own to be able to pull through the show, even though I know that wasn't good. And then I'd be like, could hardly talk for 2 or 3 days afterwards. And eventually I got a hematoma on my vocal cord on tour when I was just pushing it way too hard. And that was the first time where it opened up my eyes to be like, oh man, I need to start taking care of myself. And because I had to cancel like 5 shows. I still, even with the hematoma, I ended up doing 3 more shows even after the doctor told me not to, because I did not want to quit. I was just like, I'll be fine. I'll figure out a different way to sing so I don't damage myself. But that was really the wake up call for me. And talking to Mindy and going and getting scoped and finding out all these things, and really it shot in the fear of, wow, I might not ever be able to sing again if I don't start taking care of myself and be a lot more cognizant of vocal warm-ups and training and everything else. And so then I started getting better again after that, but then I fell back into old bad habits. And it wasn't until, Mindy and I started working together really consistently over the past 2 or 3 years where I started taking warm-ups and warm-downs a lot more serious and drinking a lot more water and making sure I got sleep. Anytime a vocalist asks me like, what are your tricks? How are you able to go, 8 shows in a row and still maintain your voice? And I'm like, the 2 main things for me is water and sleep. That's just the thing. What it comes down to is just being consistent, and it's not sure you're not going to, maybe you like to party and hang out late and stay up with friends and do all that stuff. But what it comes down to is, if you want to do this for the rest of your life, if you want to be a singer, if you want to be a professional vocalist, just like being an athlete, you have to train for it. You have to put in the time and change your lifestyle because the older you get, that your vocal cords aren't going to get better. It's like an athlete. Your muscles, you've been using them for a long time, so you got to take better care of them in order to consistently do what you love. And that was the reality check for me, was just like, like I had to look at myself in the mirror and be like, and make these decisions and choices every single day. Do I want to eat something that's going to give me reflux? Do I want to drink this beer or take this shot of whiskey, or am I going to drink water or soda water or something else instead? And do I want to stay up an extra 2 hours just to for fear of missing out, or I'm going to go to bed and make sure I get 8 hours of sleep so I sound great tomorrow and I don't put my voice under strain. And
I
that's
love that.
the reality of it all.
And he'll agree to this. This was not an easy choice. And it was many conversations that he and I have had over the last few years. And I think it's been really telling on his end to trust me, and for me to be like, okay, if we slipped, it was okay. Let's bring it back up again. And so there was a lot of interaction and dialogue that he and I had, over, I don't know what it's been, like 2 years now, where we have had to, like, I was the cheerleader pushing, and then there was also some major tough love moments where we had to have some very difficult conversations of a reality check as well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the really good things too, as a vocal coach or anybody, like, a friend in life, where sometimes you got to give them the straight, hard truth and not beat around the bush. You got, like, and you would lay it out to me, like, do you want to go back to being a bagger at the grocery store, or do you want to put your big boy pants on and do what you need to do?
That doesn't sound like Mindy at all. I don't know what
that really true.
about.
I remember asking him if he had a resume he could give it to me, because I had an uncle who was a manager at Home Depot, and I would get him a job, because that's the path.
Well, you were offering a solution. That's positive.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that, like, that lifestyle change is no joke. I mean, I really do think that the misconception of, like, the lifestyle that you should be able to do it all. You should be able to, perform this way, and you shouldn't need to worry about that body is, I'm glad that it's been dispelled for you. And I think that your comparison to athlete is, like, so on the nose. It's so, what we say it all the time. But how did you come to that decision? Like, I need to work with a coach. How did you find one? How did you hear those tough moments from her and process it and take it seriously rather than kind of be turned off by it?
Well, Mindy's just, she just has a very good way of being honest, straightforward, without being insulting or talking down to you, just being like, like a good friend. So, and I had talked to other people before that were, there's a friend of ours, I'm not going to name names. She's just super nice and super sweet, and she wasn't quite as, I don't want to say mean, but straightforward and just to the point, like, you're going to totally ruin this. But I went to the doctors and got the scopes, and they did kind of lay it out, like, you need to start doing better and do this and do that. But it was one of those things where I would do better after 2 or 3 months and then kind of go back to the same habits. Oh, cool, I'm healed. I can go to it. Where Mindy, and Mindy, we knew each other from elementary school. So we had a connection like that right off the bat.
But we didn't realize it at first.
Yeah.
We couldn't,
That's
like, it was
better.
after, like, the first few times we met, I was like, I swear I know you. Like, I couldn't quite figure it out. And we realized it was like 5th and 6th grade. And I was like, oh my gosh, were we like the kind that, like, sent a letter that says, do you like me? Check yes or no. Like, it was pretty, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, we went to elementary school together. It was pretty funny. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, you got to find that person that you trust and that you connect with as well. But I think for a vocal coach, I mean, you got to be, I don't want to say you got to be a friend too, but that's what really worked for me, where I connected with Mindy on multiple levels as being a human being. and respected her ability and the people that she's worked with. And I'd gone to a couple other vocal coaches, and they were just too, I don't know. They just didn't have the passion.
It wasn't a good fit, we'll call it.
Yeah, it wasn't a good fit. And
Yeah.
and you got to find that good fit. You can't feel guilty. I mean, it's, you know, if you're just like, this isn't working for me, then find the right person that works for you, because it is that important.
Well, how did you wrap your head around working with a coach? Because I think for a lot of artists, they sort of are afraid you're going to change my sound or you're going to come at me hard. What was your internal struggle like before that first call?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. That was my fear for so many years. I didn't want somebody to come in and change my technique or change my voice or change who I was as a vocalist. And that was the excuse I used for a long time. And I'll put it as an excuse. But I think finally it was like, I just wanted to grow as a vocalist. And also I was sick of having so many of those shows where I was having damage, and I kept having to go into the doctor and get scoped because I'd be worried. And finally it was like, you know what, I'm going to do lessons. And, you know, and Mindy assured me that it wasn't going to change my voice or who I was. She would just help me to sing with the proper technique so I didn't damage myself. And that's what, you know, finally I just trusted and gave it a shot, you know, and I've been doing it for long enough that I felt like nothing's going to change my voice at this point, where, you know, I know as a vocalist what I can do, but I wanted to expand my knowledge of singing and knowledge of, proper maintenance as well. So it really just came to swallowing my pride and being like, I got to try this and try it for a period of time, so I actually know if it's a positive fit for me or if it's not what I want. And it ended up being what I wanted, so it was good.
So,
and do you feel like it changed your voice? I'm kind of curious. Like, did she deliver on what she promised? She promised you that it wouldn't change your voice or your sound.
Yeah. No, it's more than anything, it's just made it so I have more control over my voice. Like before, I mean, I'd have the mic out to here, you know, and just be screaming at the top of my lungs. And now my mic control is a lot tighter, which my sound guy likes too. Where it's more of a, I don't know, it hasn't changed how I sing at all. It's just made it more powerful with less strain.
That's
and
awesome.
It's increased my range as well, and my durability. So it was everything that I wanted it to be. It's been.
Aww.
Love you.
Plus Mindy's kind of like a shrink whenever I just need to talk to somebody. There's been times where I just come in and we just talk and talk and talk. And it's like, oh, well, your time's up. Like,
get in line. She's mine.
it's a different kind of stress relief, you know, because stress is not good for the vocal cords. So she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
Most of the time we're having those moments as I'm rubbing his throat down and like sitting here like, okay, we're having a talk today, so let's just unhinge everything. Yeah. But with that, like, you're one of my favorite stories to tell, because I know it wasn't easy in that first year with us going back and forth where we were figuring out kind of that trust component. Yeah. But I do have to say, the first time you came in, and you know we laugh about this at the same time, where you came in and it was like, I'm a rocker, and like had this thing and how are you going to help me attitude type. And I was just like, cool, show me what you do. So I know. And at this time I'd only kind of heard a little bit about what had happened, but he comes into the studio and goes in and I'm like, show me what you do. And he just goes into this full yell, the scream that was the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life, like going into it. And what happened next? Do you remember, Neil?
Yeah. Your neighbor thought I was assaulting you and came over for the rescue. She had like a gun or pepper spray or something, like breaking the door because she thought that Mindy was in trouble.
I need a neighbor like that. That's fantastic.
It was that intense of a yell that my neighbor legit ran over because they thought I was being assaulted. And I'm looking through the window like, what's going on? And they're like, are you okay?
And she's like cocking her gun.
Literally, Mill's just like, yeah! like just still screaming into it. It was like the most amazing like story ever. So
Oh my gosh. You can't make it up. It's a classic Mindy story.
True. So we had a few more questions we wanted to ask you. One is that obviously there's people can look up your history. You were in the ICU for a while and you almost died.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, like, with that experience, how did that change your focus, your choices, your goals? Like, was that a pivotal moment for you in making these changes? And where do you see yourself go? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I made some poor decisions to end up in that predicament, and I changed myself for a while after that, but again, I kept falling into the same ruts. But I look back at that experience. I fell off a balcony like 35 feet and landed on cement, tore my pelvis in half. I had to learn how to walk again. I couldn't feel my legs, and lived in a wheelchair for a while. But it was like our fans and music is what got me back up. And every once in a while, I forget about what put me in that situation and what got me out of that situation. But I do reference that a lot, especially nowadays. I go back to it and be like, never go back to that place that put you in a bad spot. And there's been a lot of those occasions in my life where, and I don't know why I kept, or still, I mean, I'm only talking about the sobriety thing, but alcohol has always been a kind of a crutch for me vocally. Also getting on stage and being like, I'd use whiskey instead of the hot honey and tea, or I'd be like, oh, I need a hot toddy, and I would use that and be like, oh, it loosens me up. That's the trick for my voice. But really, that's been such a negative thing for my voice and a negative thing for my life that I love singing more than absolutely anything except for my family. And so those horrible things that I've been through, it's like I just got to keep that in the back of my mind, as coming to those choices that I mentioned earlier. Those small choices add up to be big things, because those small choices, either you go a choice that's a bad one that ends you in the curve that points you right back where you were, or a small choice that takes you upward to where you want to be. And so I never want to be put in that situation again where I risk my life or risk my future as a professional vocalist, which would then in turn risk my family's well-being.
That's like a very empowered way to think of it, but it's a real struggle. I mean, I think that it's really easy to think of the physical injury as something that happened to you, and that drinking is not something that happens to you, it's a choice. But the reality is it's a very, very mushy gray line. I mean, these are, we talk about mental health during the conference for exactly this reason, that they all exist together. And these are all, in some, the battles that you're fighting: the physical, the mental, the emotional, the financial, the logistical. Everything is, as an artist, is things that you're bringing out onto the stage every time you're trying to perform, and you are making choices to work with your body and work against some of the negative things that are happening in your body and work with the positive. I mean, you're having to deal with the fractured pelvis and the consequences of that, and you're handling that positively. That urge to drink, or the interest in it, or whatever reason it was, is probably still there, and you're making a choice to fight that too. And I think it's really incredible that you're willing to share that, and we really appreciate it, because I know you're not alone in dealing with that. I talk to my patients about it all the time. What are some of the ways you have managed to substitute anything that used to be maybe a calm for your nerves? Or do you have a different warm-up routine just for your whole body now that it does behave differently?
Just physical activity, like working out and riding a bike. I tried to take my bike on tour with me. And then I'm trying to do more like the meditative kind of thing, or just sitting and breathing. And, and I know there's a lot of vocalists out there that have the same thing, where drinking is their way to get on stage, but even though it's hurting their voice. But for me, the first few times back on stage, probably the first month, it's hard to get back up there. And, I would forget lyrics and things like that, because it became such a normal thing for me. Like when I was drinking, like I wouldn't think about lyrics. I wouldn't worry about the person that's frowning in the side of the room. Why is he not having a good time? But then just a month into it or so, 6 weeks into it, it's like, wow, I'm having so much more fun, and I'm more in control of what I'm saying, and more in control of the audience, and being observant of the surroundings to it, like where it just gets a lot more comfortable. So it's just, luckily, having the experience, I know that was coming. And so I could just look forward to be like, you know what, it's going to be better. And I'm able to analyze my performances a lot more. Where when I'm drunk on stage, it's like, sure, I just have fun. I don't even think about it. Half the time, I don't even remember what happened up there. So I want to be, I don't know, I like being the best I can possibly be. So knowing that being sober on stage is the best vocalist, and and the best for my vocal health, that is one of the things I keep in my mind, that this is the right decision, that taking a shot, even though it calms your nerves or whatever you think it does, it's not the right decision.
What do you do before you go onto stage? Like, how do you calm the nerves now?
I don't know. I just kind of
do a warm up now. I know that.
Yeah, I warm up the boys.
I was leading you. All you had to do was
I'm just gonna say it. Like, I know, he's like, maybe he's in my head. I'm the best nag ever when I need to be.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, I definitely do. I have my little straw. I use my voice straw, and
awesome.
I have my my time where I go and sit in whatever vehicle we're in. If we're in the tour bus, we're in the van, or I even walk around with it. And I always try to take at least 10 minutes before we go on stage, and while I'm doing the vocal straw, I'm visualizing how I'm going to be on stage and what I'm going to do on stage, and just thinking of the songs and thinking of the set list, and kind of putting myself out there, having a really good show. And also using, and while I'm doing the straw and going through the things, I'm thinking of, because after a while doing your warm-ups, they're kind of become second nature. But so then just putting those positive thoughts into my head at the same time, where I don't have to drink my way into those positive thoughts. I'm killing two birds with one stone by.
That was actually, it's like ready the body, ready the mind. I love that. And visualization is a known technique that you're sort of almost throwing out there, like it's just something you do, but you're 100% right that is a really powerful tool to calm nerves. And I love that you have a real tangible technique that our listeners can utilize as well. Visualization and kind of walking yourself in your mind's eye through that show and seeing it successfully in your mind is a proven way to kind of conquer that anxiety or stress.
But Neil is also the type of person that is the yes, yes, yes man. Like, yes, yes, yes. And so we've had to have a lot of conversations about him trusting his band members to actually come into a more active role, whether it was before they got the tour bus, but actually, like, your band members can drive so you can sleep. Your band members can do this. And so we've talked a lot about, as the singer, like, he has to be able to trust his band. Oh, he went away, but he'll come back in. But where he can trust his band to actually pull more weight, that all the pressure isn't just on him as being the front man, the singer, and all of that, but coming in. And I think that's been a big component for you as well. Would I be accurate in saying that?
Yeah, for sure. And we had another talk the other day where that's one of my biggest problems, is delegating responsibilities. I'm always horrible at that. But the band has noticed and has stepped up to help. And I still work on that, like, where I just got to get things off my chest. When I start feeling overwhelmed, and being stressed and angry isn't good either for anything. But just being able to delegate those responsibilities. I don't know how many people have that same thing, but lead singer syndrome of, I have to drive the car, I have to do all the interviews, I have to set this up, I have to sit and shake hands to every fan until everyone's gone. where, you know, people now are just like step up and be like, oh, you're done, Neil. It's time to get to bed. You know, you only have 7 hours before you have to wake up and hit the road. It's time. You got to get some sleep. And I've given people the authority to do that, where before I'm like, no, I'll sit here and shake everyone's hand. But, and, you know, sure, there's going to be some fans that are sad, but in the long run, you know, they want you to be able to continue doing what you do. So delegation has become a new trick that I'm learning, or a new thing that I'm learning.
All right, you want to ask the last question?
I do.
Okay.
So we did our research as well. And one of the articles that I read about you referenced the fact that you find Disney music to be one of your sources of inspiration as an influence of yours. So give us your favorite, either Disney song or Disney movie, something where that music really like does it for you.
The Little Mermaid was my jam. I still, one of my favorite movies, and all the songs in that movie I absolutely love.
They're so good. I just watched it with my kids for the first time, believe it or not, a couple of weeks ago, and they love it too.
The songs, and I mean, that was like whenever I was growing up, so many of those songs were so epic, you know, in Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid, and what was the other one that was Aladdin? You know, those songs were just, that was my childhood. I love those.
Well, you're somebody who accomplishes the goals you set yourself out to do, so I have no doubt we'll be seeing you on the board soon.
That's right. I would love it.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. The panel that we've done in our forums has been like one of the number one things that people have absolutely loved, is getting advice from like actually artists who are out there in there and really doing it. And that has such a compelling story of, you know, where we've talked about like from the injury and the influences and everything else that people can relate to. So I just really appreciate you taking the time. You already know I love you and I love our sessions. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to help these other, I mean, it's a worldwide thing now with this forum, and hopefully it garners some more fan base for you when you go out and with this new label and getting out and over into Europe and all that fun stuff. So I'm really excited to see the positives that have come from all your hard work, because I can tell everybody you're one of the hardest workers I've ever worked with. And, you know, I appreciate you a lot. So thank you.
Well, I love you too. And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that our paths crossed once again, because you have been such a major influence, not only as a vocal coach, but as a friend, and such a good guidance for me. So thank you so much. Dr. Gubb, so good to meet you as well. Hopefully we'll
Thank you so much. Definitely. Thank you for spending your Sunday with us.
Yeah,
of course.
All right. Well, go give the
good.
kids and wifey a love, and then I will see you on Tuesday for our session. So, or Monday, whatever we meet.
Yes, tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. All
All
right.
right. Happy Sunday.
Bye, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I am the only one who writes the words that tell my story. I